Your savings account is lying to you. The number going up every month? That's not wealth. That's an illusion. And by the time this video is over, you're going to see exactly how much it's actually costing you to feel safe. Here's what nobody tells you. The decision to not invest, to just sit on cash and wait, is still a financial decision. It has consequences. Real ones. And in 2026, with inflation running between 2.4% and 3.3%, depending on what category of spending you look at, those consequences are hitting harder than most people realise. I'm going to show you the math behind why cash feels safe but isn't. I'm going to tell you what the smartest investors in the world actually do when they're unsure about where to put money. And at the end of this, you're going to have a clear framework for what to do with cash right now, no matter how much you're holding, no matter where the market is. But first, let me show you something that most people get completely wrong about money. Let's start with a question. What's the most dangerous thing you can do with money? Most people would say, invest in something risky. Stocks, crypto, something that could crash and lose half its value. And yes, that's a real risk, but here's what almost nobody says. Leaving money in a savings account for years is also a real risk, just a slower, quieter one. The kind that doesn't show up on your bank statement, the kind that sneaks up on you. Here's how it works. Right now in early 2026, the national average interest rate on a standard savings account is around 0.39% APY. That's the number your bank is paying you to hold your money. Less than 0.5%. Meanwhile, inflation is running at somewhere between 2.4% and 3.3%. Consumer prices are climbing. Gas, groceries, rent, you already feel it. The Federal Reserve's own data confirms it. So do the math with me. Your bank pays you 0.39%. Inflation takes 2.5% to 3%. That means every single year, your purchasing power is shrinking by roughly 2% to 2.6%. You are guaranteed to lose ground just by doing nothing. And it gets worse. That's before taxes. If you're in a higher tax bracket, the interest you earn on that savings account gets taxed as regular income. So your after-tax, inflation-adjusted return is even more negative. Here's a real number to sit with. A negative real yield of just -1% per year, which is actually better than what most savings accounts currently deliver, would shrink $10,000 down to about $9,044 in real purchasing power after 10 years. You'd still see a bigger number on your screen, but you could actually buy less with it. That's the illusion. The balance goes up, your wealth goes down, and almost everyone is walking around with this illusion right now. According to recent Federal Reserve data, American households are holding trillions of dollars in cash and cash equivalents. A big chunk of that is sitting in accounts earning rates that don't even come close to keeping up with what things actually cost. Now here's the question that actually matters. Why? Why are so many people sitting on cash when the math so clearly says it's costing them money? Part 1, the psychology of cash. The answer isn't stupidity, the answer is psychology. Cash feels safe. When you look at your bank account and you see $50,000 sitting there, it feels like security. It feels like control. The number is stable. Nothing scary is happening. And in a world where markets can drop 20% in a few months, that feeling of control is worth something. But here's the problem. We're wired to be more scared of visible losses than invisible ones. If your investment account drops by $2,000, you feel that. It stings, it keeps you up at night. But if inflation quietly erodes $2,000 of purchasing power from your savings account, you don't see it. There's no red number on a screen. So it doesn't feel like a loss, even though it absolutely is. Behavioral economists call this loss aversion. The pain of a visible loss is psychologically about twice as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. And cash exploits that perfectly. It never shows you a visible loss, so your brain thinks it's safe, but your bank account balance is not the same thing as your wealth. And until you understand that difference, you'll always be vulnerable to this illusion. Now, I want to be very clear about something before we go further. I'm not saying everyone sitting on cash is making a terrible mistake. Cash has a very real purpose. An emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of expenses is not a mistake. It's a necessity. Money you need in the next 1 to 2 years for a specific goal. Buying a house, paying for school, a planned expense that should absolutely stay liquid and safe. Cash is a tool. And like any tool, it's useful when used right and expensive when misused. The problem is when cash becomes a permanent strategy. when waiting turns into a lifestyle, when "I'll invest when things calm down" becomes the sentence you say every year for years without ever actually doing anything. Sound familiar? And if you want to have more cash for all that's coming, you can just open your YouTube channel, since YouTube is the golden opportunity of this decade, and I can help you in my free community in the link below. Part 2, the true cost of waiting. Let me put some real numbers to this because I think people drastically underestimate how much time costs them. Here's the scenario. You have $20,000 in cash. You're waiting for the right time to invest it. Let's say the market is volatile. You're not sure what's going to happen, and you decide to wait. Meanwhile, the S&P 500 has returned roughly 10% annually on average over the last several decades. That's a historical average, not a guarantee of future performance, but it's what the data shows. Let's use it as our benchmark. If you invest that $20,000 today and leave it alone for 30 years at 10% per year, you end up with approximately $349,000. If you wait just 2 years before investing and then leave it for the same amount of time, you end up with about $289,000. You waited 2 years. You lost roughly $60,000 in potential growth. Not because the market crashed, not because you made a bad investment, because you waited. This is the rule of 72 in action. At 10% annual growth, money doubles approximately every 7.2 years. Every year you delay investing is a year you're not doubling. Every dollar you keep in cash at 0.39% is a dollar that isn't compounding in your favor. Now imagine doing this not with $20,000, but with $100,000 or $200,000. The numbers get painful very fast. Here's what's wild though. Research consistently shows that most people who say they're waiting for the right moment never find that moment. Or they find it after the market has already recovered and they've missed the biggest gains. This is called market timing, and it's one of the most reliably destructive habits in personal finance. A study by Charles Schwab looking at 20-year investment outcomes found that even a perfect market timer, someone who invested every dollar at the exact lowest point of the year, every single year, only slightly outperforms someone who invested the same amount consistently at the start of each year. And both of those strategies massively beat the person who kept their money in cash while waiting. The takeaway? Waiting doesn't just cost you gains, it actively makes you worse off compared to almost any other strategy. Part 3. What's actually happening in 2026? Let's get specific about the environment we're in right now. In 2026, we're dealing with what economists are calling sticky inflation. This is the term for inflation that doesn't come back down to the Fed's 2% target easily. Prices went up fast in the early 2020s. Some of them have moderated. But the overall price level isn't dropping, it's staying elevated. Services inflation, housing costs, and certain food categories are particularly stubborn. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate is sitting near 6.5%, which has created what some are calling the Great Housing Lock-in. Millions of homeowners who refinanced at 2 to 3% during 2020 and 2021 don't want to sell because they'd have to trade their cheap loan for an expensive one. This has kept housing supply low, which has kept prices high, which adds pressure to the cost of living for everyone else. Meanwhile, high-yield savings accounts, the better ones from online banks and fintechs, are paying anywhere from 4% to 5% APY as of early 2026. That's better than a traditional savings account by a huge margin. But here's the thing, once you factor in a 24% federal income tax rate on that interest, and then subtract 3% inflation, your real return on a 4.5% HYSA is actually close to zero. Maybe slightly positive. Not negative, but barely breaking even. So even the smart cash option, the high-yield savings account that everyone's talking about, is basically a way to not lose money rather than a way to build wealth. And that's fine for your emergency fund. But if you have $50,000 or $200,000 sitting in a HYSA thinking you're winning, you're not winning, you're treading water in a pool that's slowly rising. The other big thing happening right now, the market is weird. The S&P 500 has had significant volatility due to tariff uncertainty, AI valuation debates, and geopolitical noise. This is making a lot of people nervous, and nervousness leads to cash hoarding. But here's the historical truth about volatile markets. They look terrifying from the inside, and they look like buying opportunities in hindsight. Every single major market downturn in history, 2001, 2008, 2020, looked catastrophic in real time, and every single one was followed by a recovery that rewarded the people who stayed invested or bought more. The people who went to cash in 2020 when the market dropped 35% in 5 weeks. If they stayed in cash until they felt comfortable again, many of them missed the fastest market recovery ever recorded. The S&P 500 was back at all-time highs within 6 months. I'm not saying crashes don't hurt. They do. I'm saying the response to a crash matters more than the crash itself. Part 4. The 3-bucket framework. What to actually do. Okay, so we've established that sitting on cash long-term is expensive, but just saying invest your money isn't helpful advice. People need a framework, a clear system for deciding where money goes and why. Here's the one I think makes the most sense for most people. I call it the 3-bucket framework. Bucket 1, the shield. This is your emergency fund. 3 to 6 months of living expenses in a high-yield savings account earning 4 to 5%. This money is not for investing. It's not for opportunities. It is your financial immune system. It's what keeps you from having to sell investments at the worst possible time when life happens, because life always happens. Don't touch it. Don't second-guess it. Fill it first, then move on. The amount varies by person. Someone with a stable government job and no dependents might be fine with 3 months. A freelancer with kids and a mortgage probably wants 6 months or more. Use your situation to decide. Bucket 2, the timeline fund. This is money you're going to need in the next 1 to 5 years. A house down payment, a car, your kid's tuition that starts in 3 years. This money should not be in the stock market, because the stock market can be down 30% right when you need to access it. This goes into short-term instruments, high-yield savings accounts, money market funds, short-term treasury bonds, or CDs. You're not trying to grow this aggressively. You're trying to preserve it and keep up with inflation. Bucket 3, the growth engine. Everything left over, money you don't need for at least 5 years. Ideally 10 or more, this is the money that goes to work. This is where you build wealth. This is where the stock market lives, where index funds live, where compounding does its thing over decades. The goal with Bucket 3 is not to pick stocks. It's not to find the next great tech company. For most people, the single best strategy for Bucket 3 is consistent, boring, regular contributions to low-cost index funds. Something like a total market index fund or an S&P 500 index fund. You set it up. You automate it. You ignore the news. You let time do the heavy lifting. This sounds simple, and it is, but simple doesn't mean easy. Because the hardest part isn't the math. The hardest part is doing nothing when the market is scary. Staying invested when the headlines say the world is ending. Not selling when everyone around you is selling. That is the skill. And it's worth practicing. Part 5. When cash actually is the right answer. I want to spend a minute here because I don't want this to come off as cash bad, stocks good. That's not the point. There are legitimate reasons to hold significant cash right now. Let me name a few. If you're within 2 to 3 years of a major planned purchase or life event, retirement, buying property, leaving a job to start something, holding more cash than usual is totally rational. You're reducing the risk that the market is down right when you need the money. If you genuinely believe markets are overvalued, and there are serious analysts who make this case about specific parts of the US market in 2026, holding some cash to deploy during a future downturn is a strategy, not a fear. Response: there's a difference. A strategy has a plan attached to it. A fear response is just paralysis with a financial excuse. If you're starting out and building up your bucket 1 before anything else, then yes, you're holding cash on purpose. That's exactly right. The point is, intentional cash is fine. Accidental cash, money that just sits because you never got around to deciding, is expensive. Here's the thing that I think about a lot, and I want you to really sit with this. Most people who are sitting on large amounts of cash are not doing it because they've thought deeply about risk and decided cash is the right tool for their situation. Most people are doing it because thinking about investing feels hard, confusing, or scary, and doing nothing feels like avoiding a mistake. But doing nothing is a mistake. It's just a slow one. There was a concept I came across that hit me hard. The riskiest thing in the world's the belief that there is no risk. When you look at your bank balance and see a steady number going up by a little every month, that feels like there's no risk. But there is. There's the risk that you'll be exactly where you are today, financially, in 10 years, because you kept waiting for a moment of clarity that never came. The moment of clarity doesn't come. It never comes. Markets always have uncertainty. The economy always has problems. There is no bell that rings to tell you it's safe to invest now. That bell doesn't exist. There has never been a single moment in history where the future was clear, where all the risks were gone, where the smart thing was obviously and undeniably obvious. Warren Buffett said it this way: "When the time comes to buy, you won't want to." Think about that. The best time to buy, when prices are low, when fear is high, is also the worst time emotionally to make that decision. Because you have to do the opposite of what your gut is screaming at you. That's the game. And understanding that the game is psychological first and financial second is what separates people who build real wealth from people who spend their whole lives treading water. So let's bring this all together. Holding cash long-term in 2026 is not a neutral act. It's a guaranteed slow loss of purchasing power in an environment where inflation is sticky, prices are elevated, and the gap between standard savings rates and real inflation is significant. The right use of cash is intentional, not passive. Bucket 1, emergency fund in a high-yield account. Bucket 2, near-term goals in short-term, safe instruments. Bucket 3, everything else working in the market over the long term, consistently, through index funds, regardless of what the headlines say. The biggest mistake people make isn't picking the wrong stock or investing at the wrong time. The biggest mistake is not starting, or stopping, or waiting so long that the starting never happens. Your money is not neutral. Every dollar is either growing or shrinking. In real terms, there is no standing still. The question is just whether you're making that choice on purpose or by accident. And now you know. So whatever you do next, make it on purpose. If this opened your eyes, subscribe and watch the next video to understand which compounding strategy you should use in this crash. Just a reminder, I'm not a financial advisor. This video is for educational purposes only, and any results depend on your own decisions and actions.